It started with a knock. Not the friendly kind. Not even the "I've got a package for you" kind. No, this knock had the rhythm of someone who wanted a problem. I opened the door to find two county deputies standing on my porch like I just robbed a bank. One of them rested his hand on his holster. The other glanced past me into my cabin like he was looking for someone hiding behind the couch. "You the owner?" one asked. "I am," I said, confused. "Can I help you?" "We got a call from the HOA," the first one said. "Something about unauthorized occupancy and possible trespassing." That's when I laughed. Out loud. The kind of laugh you do when you're too stunned to be angry yet. "First of all," I said, "this cabin isn't even in an HOA." That should have been the end of it. But of course, this was just the beginning of the dumbest, pettiest, most outrageous feud of my life. Let me back up. My name's Ryan. I'm not the kind of guy who usually makes enemies. I work in tech, mostly remote. I'm pretty chill. I bought this cabin 2 years ago. Quiet place, lake nearby, nestled in the woods. No HOA, no rules, no neighbors breathing down your neck. Just how I like it. But apparently, someone else didn't like me being there. Enter Cheryl, HOA president of the subdivision adjacent to my property. That's right, not part of the HOA. Not under their jurisdiction. Literally outside their boundary lines. But Cheryl decided my cabin was a visual disruption to the community harmony. Translation: she hated that I didn't ask permission to exist. The first call she made to the police, she said I was illegally camping on protected land. The second, she claimed my porch lights were affecting the wildlife. Third time, she said there were unregistered people squatting at my property. She met my cousin and his girlfriend visiting for the weekend. Every time, cops showed up. Every time, they realized there was no issue. And every time, Cheryl watched from the edge of her HOA territory with binoculars like she was staking out a cartel. By the fifth visit, the deputy who showed up just sighed and said, "Yeah, it's her again." That's when I decided to stop laughing. She wanted war. Fine. I've worked in data and systems for over a decade, pulling files, tracing digital paper trails, analyzing complex frameworks. I figured if she wanted to play dirty, I'd go full forensic on her HOA. I started by pulling public records from the county assessor's office. Took me 15 minutes to confirm what I already knew. My property wasn't in her HOA. Not adjacent. Not bordering. Not even part of the same zoning map. It sat outside their jurisdiction like a castle, surrounded by a moat. And I had the maps, deeds, and plat documents to prove it. But what I found next was even better. The HOA bylaws hadn't been updated in over 9 years. Several board members were long gone, some even deceased. Yet Cheryl kept filing new HOA rules under their names. That's fraud. I kept digging. Cheryl had written herself in as both president and treasurer, which gave her unchecked access to the HOA's budget. And boy, had she been spending. HOA dues were being funneled to a community beautification contractor, which turned out to be her nephew's lawn business. And that wildlife protection fund she cited when calling the cops on me? Yeah, that was going to her own landscaping bill. It was almost too easy. I compiled everything. Receipts, copies of the budget, fake meeting minutes. I even got drone footage showing the property line she claimed extended to my cabin, but actually ended 3 lots before mine. Then I went to war. I filed a civil suit against the HOA board, Cheryl included. My claim? Harassment, defamation, illegal misuse of HOA authority, malicious false reports to law enforcement, and abuse of power. I didn't just file for damages. I filed to have the HOA federally audited. That hit like a nuke. I served them papers during their monthly open board meeting, where Cheryl stood up in her linen suit and pastel scarf, trying to explain why HOA dues had jumped 27% in a year. She turned pale when she saw me, paler when she saw the suit, and completely ghost white when the envelope landed in front of her with my name on it. The news spread fast. Residents were furious. Some had been fined hundreds for things like wind chimes or mismatched paint tones, fines Cheryl had pocketed. One guy came up to me afterward and shook my hand. "You're the first one to stand up to her," he said. "We've all been scared she'd blacklist our houses." A week later, I got an email from an HOA board whistleblower. Yes, a real one. He handed me dozens of internal memos where Cheryl admitted targeting me because she didn't like the look of that man's cabin by the lake. Actual quote. That sealed it. The lawsuit picked up speed. Local news caught wind of it too. Tech professional sues rogue HOA after being targeted 5 times in 1 month. It aired during prime time. Cheryl's face on the screen, next to a split shot of a sheriff cruiser parked outside my cabin. I didn't even have to say a word. The footage and her smug HOA quotes spoke volumes. Then came discovery. Turns out the HOA was broke, like dangerously broke. Cheryl had drained nearly $74,000 in discretionary funds into personal contractors, family-run services, and what she labeled administrative stipends. No one knew. No one checked. Until now. Under court pressure, the rest of the board flipped on her. They admitted they had no clue she was operating without a full quorum. No elections had been held in years. Her power was a dictatorship, dressed up in community terms. In court, she tried to gaslight the judge, said she was just keeping the neighborhood safe, and that I was hostile from the beginning. But I had everything: video, audio, signed witness statements, financials. The judge wasn't amused. In the end, the court sided with me. The HOA board was dissolved. Cheryl was forced to repay over $50,000 in misused funds, barred from joining any HOA in the state for life, and hit with a $25,000 personal penalty, half of which went to me. But the best part? That cabin, my peaceful retreat by the lake, it now sits untouched. No complaints. No cops. Just quiet water and pine trees. After Cheryl's empire collapsed, you'd think the neighborhood would settle down. You'd think the board would send thank you letters or flowers, right? Wrong. Turns out, Cheryl wasn't working alone. There were whispers she'd been part of a shadow compliance group, a handful of residents who enforced HOA rules outside the official board. They called themselves the neighborhood watchdogs, which sounded harmless enough, until one of them left a dead squirrel nailed to my front gate. Yeah, that happened. The police treated it as a prank. I didn't. I upgraded my cabin with full perimeter surveillance, thermal cameras, motion lights, the works. I also filed a harassment complaint. And just for good measure, I installed a giant steel mailbox the size of a mini fridge, with "Not HOA Property" etched into the front in bold letters. A few days later, I caught one of the watchdogs, some guy named Frank, pouring motor oil into my driveway gravel. Another felony. He got arrested right on the spot. I didn't even have to press charges. The sheriff's deputy did it on his own. He was tired of these HOA wannabe vigilantes causing paperwork. Then came the fallout. One by one, residents started coming forward. A retired schoolteacher admitted Cheryl had fined her $100 for using a clothesline. A young couple said they were threatened with removal from the community because they parked a red car in their own driveway. No one had ever fought back until now. The county held a town hall meeting. It was supposed to be calm. Instead, it turned into a full-blown HOA exorcism. People were shouting, waving fine slips, reading old emails from Cheryl that bordered on blackmail. One man stood up and shouted, "We've been under a dictatorship. That woman tried to run the town like she was a queen." The moderator had to call security to settle the crowd. And then, quietly, something amazing happened. The county voted unanimously to ban HOA enforcement beyond designated borders. Any association that tried to enforce rules outside its legal map would be fined $10,000 per incident and referred for legal review. That was my fight. That was my story. And now, it changed policy for the whole region. But the best part? I got a call a few weeks later from Cheryl's attorney. She wanted to settle remaining civil disputes privately. I agreed on one condition. She had to apologize in writing, on paper, signed, dated, and notarized. I framed it and hung it in the cabin bathroom, right next to the mounted violation notices she used to love so much. And for every new guest who visits, they read her apology while washing their hands. So if you liked watching a corrupt HOA burn to the ground, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because my next-door neighbor just tried to bulldoze a shed that wasn't a shed, and it got very federal. You don't want to miss what happened next.